most ghost stories are vague. A creak in the hallway, a shadow in the corner, easy to brush off. Demonic encounters are different. People don't walk away from those saying, "Oh, wow, that was quirky." They walk away shaken, convinced that whatever they ran into wasn't just energy or a spirit, but something that wanted to be seen and obeyed. Tonight, we're going through 13 Reddit posts from people who believe they've come face to face with something demonic. Not just bumps in the night, but mocking voices, growls from nowhere, inhuman figures at the foot of the bed, and things that seem to know exactly what you're afraid of and use it. You'll hear about houses that feel wrong the second you step inside, sleep paralysis that goes beyond "I can't move," objects that react to prayers, and encounters that follow people from place to place like they're marked. Some of these might have explanations: stress, hallucinations, suggestion. But if even one of them is real, that's more than enough. Turn down the lights, make sure you're alone, or at least that you think you are, and don't say anything out loud that you wouldn't want something listening to hear. This is 13 Reddit Demonic Encounters. Let's begin. Story number 1 from user Chalk Circle. I think I met a demon disguised as a lost hiker.
This happened 3 years ago in the woods near my uncle's cabin in northern Maine. I didn't talk about it for a while because it just sounds insane. But every once in a while, I still hear the voice. It was late October, and I was spending a weekend alone at the cabin to clear my head. No internet, no neighbors, just trees and silence. The second night, around 2 a.m., I heard knocking on the front door. Not a panicked knock, just 3 calm, spaced-out knocks. Boom, boom, boom. I didn't answer at first, just sat up in bed, heart hammering. Then came a voice. "Excuse me, I'm lost." It didn't sound scared. It sounded like someone pretending to be scared. A weird cadence, like they'd practiced the line. I looked out the front window and saw a man standing there. Dirty clothes, no jacket, barefoot. But his skin looked too clean, pale like paper. No goosebumps, no breath in the cold air. And his eyes? They didn't reflect the porch light. They were matte, like doll eyes. "I'm lost," he said again. "Can I come in and warm up?" Something in me screamed no. Not fight or flight. Repel. Like my body rejected his presence. I didn't answer. I just stayed crouched by the window, not breathing. That's when he started talking in a different voice. Not louder, lower, like it came from inside the walls. "You know what your father did. You know what's waiting for him, but you still pray. My dad died when I was 12. Nobody knew except close family. This thing was smirking now, head cocked like it could see me through the wall. Let me in, and I'll give you the truth. All of it. No more lies. You're tired of the lies, aren't you?" I don't remember grabbing the Bible off the shelf. I hadn't touched it in years, but I stood up, held it to my chest, and whispered the only verse I could remember. "Yeah, though I walk through the valley," he screeched, a noise like a pig being butchered underwater. Then ran, not stumbled, ran into the woods. Fast, too fast. His legs didn't even bend right. I stayed awake till sunrise, packed up, left. A week later, I talked to the old guy who lives down the road. I didn't tell him everything, just that someone had come to the door acting weird. He looked at me real serious and said, "They don't knock unless you've already let them in once." I've never been back to the cabin.
Story number 2 from user Burned Page. There's something in the woods behind my place. It wasn't an animal.
So, I live pretty far out, bordering a state forest. Usually it's peaceful. Crickets, owls, the occasional deer rustling. Last night was different. It started around 2 a.m. My dog, Buster, a big dumb golden retriever who usually sleeps through anything short of a meteor strike, started whimpering at the back door. Low, guttural whimpers, the kind that make the hairs on your neck stand up. I figured he probably just needed to pee. so I dragged myself out of bed. Opened the door, and Buster bolted outside like he'd seen a ghost. I sighed and followed him, flashlight in hand. The air was thick, heavy, and smelled wrong, like ozone mixed with something rotten but sweet, sickeningly sweet. I called Buster's name, but he was fixated on the tree line. His tail was tucked so far between his legs I thought it might disappear. Then I saw it. Not it exactly at first, just a pair of eyes reflecting my flashlight beam. But they weren't normal animal eyes. They were too bright, almost glowing with an inner red light. And they were high off the ground, way higher than any deer or coyote I've ever seen. I froze. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I told myself it was just an owl, playing tricks with the light. But owls don't have eyes that burn like embers. Then it moved, slowly. It stepped out of the shadows, and I almost dropped my flashlight. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, but twisted. Too tall, maybe 7 or 8 feet, with limbs that looked too long and thin. Its skin was dark like charcoal and seemed to absorb the light. I couldn't make out any features clearly, but I could sense something wrong about its face. Like the features were there, but not quite right. Misplaced, and the smell. God, the smell got stronger. That cloying sweetness like overripe fruit left in the sun, mixed with something metallic, like old blood. Buster was whimpering and trying to bury himself behind my legs. He's never acted like this. Ever. Then it spoke, not in words I could understand. It was a low, guttural sound, like rocks grinding together in a wet cave. But even though I didn't understand the language, I felt the malice in it. A cold, ancient hatred that seemed to seep into my bones. I didn't think. I just grabbed Buster's collar and dragged him back inside, slamming and locking the door. I didn't look back. I've been sitting here for hours, lights on, every window and door locked. Buster hasn't stopped shaking. I haven't either. I don't know what I saw. I really, really don't, but it wasn't natural. It wasn't an animal. It was something else. Something darker. Has anyone else ever experienced anything like this? Am I losing my mind? I need to know if I should call someone or if I just imagined the whole damn thing. Please tell me I imagined it. TLDR. My dog freaked out at 2 a.m. I went outside and saw something tall, dark, and definitely not from this world in the woods behind my house. It smelled like death and spoke in the sound of grinding bones. Stay safe out there, folks, and maybe double check what's lurking in your backyard tonight. Update 1, I haven't slept. Every creak of the house makes me jump. I peeked out the window this morning and there's nothing there. No tracks, no sign of anything. The air smells normal again, but Buster is still skittish, won't go near the back door. Update 2, my neighbor, old Mrs. Henderson, mentioned seeing strange lights in the woods a few nights ago. She thought it was kids with flashlights. Now I'm not so sure. Update 3, I'm getting a security camera installed today. I need to know if this was real or if I need to check myself into a psych ward. We'll update if I catch anything. Wish me luck and sanity.
Story number 3. From User Candle Cipher. The Thing in My Apartment. Knew I wasn't alone.
I live alone. Top floor of a quiet old building in Chicago. Thick walls, bad heating, creaky pipes. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. Or was until about 2 months ago, when something moved in with me. It started small, keys in weird places, cabinets I just closed being open again, stuff you can chalk up to stress or distraction. But then I noticed the bathroom mirror kept fogging up, even when I hadn't showered. I'd walk by and there'd be smears on the glass, like fingerprints dragging down. Once, in the corner, I swear I saw writing, "You are not alone." I wiped it away before I could even think. Then came the dreams. Same one every night. I'm sitting at my kitchen table, back turned to the hallway. I hear breathing, deep, wheezing, like someone with a collapsed lung. But when I turn around, the hallway just stretches. It keeps going, and there's something at the end of it, crawling, slowly, deliberately. I started sleeping at my friend Tasha's place after that. She didn't believe me at first, thought I was just spiraling, but then she came by to feed my cat while I was gone. She found my living room mirror covered in writing, one phrase over and over again. Do not let him think you are alone. No signs of forced entry, nothing on the security camera facing my door. But Tasha swears she felt watched the whole time she was there, said the air felt too thick, like breathing through syrup. I came back home to grab a few things and saw it for myself. Not the mirror, that had been wiped clean, but something else was written, carved, into the wall behind it. I know you leave, but he does not. I haven't been back since. I'm crashing with Tasha until I can afford a new place, but sometimes around 3 a.m. I still wake up to that same sound, breathing deep inside the walls.
Story number 4 from user him in reverse. The man on the subway wasn't human and he knew I knew.
This happened last year, and I've never posted about it because I still don't have a clean explanation. Not one that makes sense anyway. But maybe someone here has seen something like this before. I was on the subway in Brooklyn, late at night, probably around 1 a.m., heading home from a friend's place. The car was mostly empty except for a couple drunks slumped in their seats and a man sitting directly across from me, dressed like he'd walked out of a funeral in 1922. Black three-piece suit, shiny shoes, silver pocket watch he kept flicking open and shut. Not weird for New York, honestly, but his face, he was too still. Not a twitch, not a blink, just stared straight ahead, eyes fixed on me like I was the only thing keeping him from going feral. I tried not to meet his gaze, but every time I glanced up, he was already locked on me, like he knew exactly when I'd look, like he was inside my thoughts. Then the lights in the car flickered, just for a second, but in that flicker, he smiled, wide, way too wide, the kind of smile you'd expect from someone unzipping their skin and stepping out, all teeth, no lips, and his eyes. They went completely black, no whites, like ink bleeding into water. When the lights came back, he was back to normal, blank expression, pocket watch clicking. I was frozen. Everyone else on the train seemed oblivious, except the guy sitting on the far end. Homeless-looking dude, beard, layers of coats in July. He stood up, made his way toward me, muttering, "No, no, 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 not here, not again, not another one." He stood between me and the man in the suit like a human shield. The suited man looked up at him and said, calm as anything. She looked back. That means I can follow. The train screeched to a stop even though we weren't at a station. Lights flickered again. All the ads on the walls, every single one, were replaced with blank, white sheets. I swear one of them had the words, "He's behind you," scribbled in black marker. I didn't turn around. When the lights came back for good, the suited man was gone. Just vanished. No open doors, no footsteps. Like he'd never been there. The homeless guy sat across from me, staring at the floor. "Don't look for him," he muttered. "Looking makes it worse." I moved the next day. Haven't ridden that line since. But every time I'm near a mirror in public, department stores, elevators, train stations, I check behind me. Sometimes there's a man in an old black suit, and sometimes he smiles.
Story number 5 from user Ouija Planchette. The new kid in class wasn't a kid at all.
This happened when I was a junior in high school. I've never told anyone the full version because it sounds like a bad horror movie, but screw it. Maybe someone here has had a similar experience. It was mid-year when the new kid showed up. His name was Daniel, but the teachers kept calling him David by accident. Every single one, like they couldn't hold his name in their heads. He was pale, tall, and quiet. Always wore long sleeves, even when it was 90 degrees. Eyes too dark, too still, like when you stare into a turned-off TV and see your reflection doing something your face isn't. He sat in the back of English class, right behind me, never raised his hand, never got called on. But every time we read aloud in class, he whispered along perfectly in sync, not a second behind, even with poems we hadn't seen before. Then things started to get weird. One morning, The room smelled like sulfur. The fire alarm went off, but there was no smoke. When we got back inside, Daniel was the only one still at his desk, just smiling, teeth way too small, like a shark wearing dentures. Another time, our teacher, Mrs. Vickers, was reading The Crucible when she suddenly stopped mid-sentence, stared at Daniel, and said, "You can't be here. We banned your name." No one understood what she meant. She went on leave the next day, never came back. Sub said it was a mental health break, but she'd left her notes behind on the podium. One of the pages just said, "He walks behind the bell," over and over in shaky red pen. Here's the part I still dream about. It was during a test, dead silent. I dropped my pencil and leaned down to grab it, and saw Daniel's feet weren't touching the ground. He was just hovering there, inches above the floor, not floating, hanging. When I sat back up, he was grinning at me, not malicious, more like excited, like he was waiting for me to notice. And then he whispered something I'll never forget. One more name, and I'm real again. I switched out of that class the next day. They said Daniel transferred a week later, but I've checked every school in the district. No record, no transfer papers, nothing. And every once in a while, I get spam calls. Unknown number, no voicemail. But when I pick up, I hear breathing, and then a whisper, "Say my name."
Story number 6, from user Van Across the Street. My new neighbor isn't right. I think he's wearing someone else's skin.
Long-time lurker, finally have something truly unsettling to share. Just moved into a quiet little cul-de-sac a few weeks ago. Seemed like a nice, normal place. Until I met Mr. Henderson next door. He introduced himself on my first day. Seemed friendly enough, if a little off. He had this overly enthusiastic smile that never quite reached his eyes, and his handshake was strangely cold and firm. He offered to help me carry some boxes, which was nice, but his strength was unnerving. He picked up a box that usually takes 2 people with 0 effort. Over the past few weeks, I've had a few more interactions with him, and the more I see, the more uneasy I become. For one thing, his routine is bizarre. He seems to be awake at all hours. I've seen lights on in his house at 3 a.m., and then he'll be outside gardening at 6 a.m., looking completely unfazed. He also never seems to eat. I've lived next door for 3 weeks and haven't seen a single grocery delivery or him carrying bags inside, yet he always offers me food, usually overly sweet things like pies or cakes that look suspiciously perfect. I've politely declined every time. Then there's his appearance. It's subtle, but things seem to shift. Sometimes his eyes look almost too wide, like they don't quite fit his face. Other times, his smile seems to stretch a little too far, revealing just a hint of teeth that look wrong. Too many, maybe, or too sharp. And his skin. It sounds crazy, I know, but sometimes it looks loose, like it's not quite attached properly. I've caught glimpses of what looks like faint, unnatural lines around his neck and wrists, almost like seams. The worst incident happened a few nights ago. My cat, Mittens, who usually loves exploring outside, was hissing and spitting at Mr. Henderson's house from my window. Mittens never acts like that. She's the most docile creature on the planet. Whatever she saw over there terrified her. Later that night, I heard a noise outside my bedroom window, a soft, wet scraping sound. I cautiously peeked through the blinds. Mr. Henderson was in his backyard under the dim porch light. He was hunched over something I couldn't quite see, and he was making these low, guttural sounds. It sounded like purring, but deeper, more resonant. Then he stood up, and I saw what he was holding. It looked like a small animal, maybe a rabbit, completely limp and twisted. Its limbs were bent at unnatural angles. Mr. Henderson just stared at it for a long moment, then his head snapped up and he looked directly at my window. Even through the darkness, I felt those empty eyes on me. He smiled that too wide smile, and I swear, for a split second, his face seemed to ripple, like water disturbed by a stone. I slammed the blinds shut and locked every door and window. I haven't slept properly since. I know this sounds insane, a friendly neighbor who's maybe just a bit eccentric, but the feeling I get around him, it's like being near something that's wearing a human suit and the seams are starting to show, like he's pretending to be normal, but underneath there's something ancient and wrong. Has anyone ever had a neighbor or acquaintance who just gave them this overwhelming sense of wrongness? Like they weren't quite human? I don't know what to do. Calling the cops seems ridiculous. Officer, my neighbor smiles weird and might be a demon in disguise. Yeah, that'll go over well, but I can't shake this feeling. I think Mr. Henderson isn't just a weird guy. I think he's something far, far worse. And I'm living right next door. TLDR, my new neighbor has strange habits, unsettling features, and my cat's terrified of him. I think he might be a demon trying very hard to look human, and the cracks in his disguise are starting to show. I'm seriously considering moving again, or at least investing in some heavy-duty holy water.
Story number 7 from user 13th Incantation. Matched with a demon on Tinder, and I think I said yes to something I shouldn't have.
Okay, I know how this sounds. Believe me, I wish this was a joke. I wish I could laugh about it with friends over drinks and say, haha, remember when I thought I matched with a demon? But I don't laugh anymore. I don't sleep much either. It started like any other doom-scrolling night. I was swiping on Tinder out of boredom when her profile popped up. Name, Lilith. No last name. Bio, let me in. Just that. No emojis, no jokes. One picture, blurry, black and white. Her face slightly turned away, but still beautiful in a way that felt wrong. Like the photo wasn't meant for human eyes. I swiped right. Of course I did. Instant match. Then came the message. Do you consent? No hi, no flirting. Just that. I thought it was a weird kink thing, so I played along and replied, sure. She responded with one word, good. That night, I woke up at 3:33 a.m. with sleep paralysis. Typical stuff at first, couldn't move, heavy chest, shadows shifting in the corners. Then I heard breathing, close, wet, like someone was inches from my face. In my head, not my ears, I heard her voice. You said yes. You welcomed me. I couldn't scream, couldn't blink. She leaned over me, same turned away face from the photo. But now I could smell her. Sulfur, blood, ash. My nose started bleeding for no reason. She whispered something I couldn't understand, like a language with too many consonants and no pauses. When I finally snapped out of it, my phone screen was on, Tinder open. Her profile was gone, not unmatched, erased. Next day, weird stuff started happening. Mirrors showing my reflection doing things I wasn't. Whispers from unplugged electronics. My cat refuses to come in my room anymore and stares at the corner like it owes him money. Then I checked my Tinder bio. I never changed it. But now it reads, he said yes. I've tried deleting my account. I've uninstalled and reinstalled, factory reset my phone. Nothing works. Every night at 3:33 a.m., she comes a little closer. Last night, I woke up with scratches on my chest, in the shape of a key. I don't know what I let in, but I think it's already inside me.
Story number 8 from user Antique Teeth Drawer. The encyclopedia salesman who knew too much and smelled like ash.
Hey Reddit, just had a really unsettling experience and need to vent. I work from home, so I'm usually the one who answers the door for the occasional delivery or, the rare door-to-door salesperson. Today it was the latter, but this guy was different. It was around 2 p.m., a dreary, overcast afternoon. I heard a polite but firm knock. Opened the door to a guy in a surprisingly sharp, old-fashioned suit. Think 3-piece, slicked back hair, the whole 9 yards. He was holding a worn leather briefcase and had this intense, almost piercing gaze. He introduced himself as Mr. Blackwood and said he was selling the grand compendium of all knowledge, a ridiculously thick set of encyclopedias. In this day and age, I almost laughed. I politely told him I wasn't interested. That's when things got weird. He didn't just leave. He kept that intense stare in his smile, which felt fixed, too perfect. He started asking me questions, not about whether I had kids or enjoyed reading. He asked me about things he couldn't possibly know. He asked about a specific childhood fear I had, one I've never told anyone. He asked about a regret I carry, a secret I've kept buried for years. His voice was smooth, almost hypnotic, and with each question, the air around him seemed to grow colder. I was completely freaked out. My polite, "No thank you," turned into a stammered, "I really need to get back to work." But he didn't budge. He opened his briefcase, and instead of encyclopedias, it was filled with these ancient-looking books, bound in dark leather, with strange symbols etched on the covers. They didn't look like anything I'd ever seen. Then he said, "But surely you have questions of your own, wouldn't you agree? Answers you seek, knowledge at a price." That's when I noticed the smell. It was faint at first, but it grew stronger with each word he spoke. It smelled like ash, like something that had been burned recently and intensely. I finally found my voice, a shaky, "Please, just leave." His smile widened, and those piercing eyes seemed to bore right through me. He said, "Everyone has something they desire, something they would trade for understanding." He then mentioned my grandmother's maiden name, something I haven't thought about in years, and definitely haven't shared with any strangers. That was it. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a normal salesman. I slammed the door shut and locked it. I peered through the peephole, and he was just standing there, still smiling, still holding that briefcase. After a few agonizing seconds, he finally turned and walked away, his footsteps silent on the pavement. I haven't moved from my couch since. I keep checking the windows. The smell of ash seems to linger faintly in the air. Who was that guy? How did he know those things about me? The encyclopedias were clearly a front. That briefcase, those books, and that smell. It felt demonic, like I just had a sales pitch from something not of this world. Has anyone else ever encountered a door-to-door salesperson who was way too unnerving, who seemed to know things they shouldn't? Please tell me I'm not the only one who's had a brush with the bizarre on their doorstep. I need to cleanse my house with fire. Maybe. TLDR. A strange encyclopedia salesman in an old-fashioned suit showed up at my door, knew incredibly personal details about me, had a briefcase full of creepy books, and smelled like ash. Pretty sure I just turned down a sales pitch from a demon. I'm not answering the door for anyone ever again, especially not guys in three-piece suits.
Story number 9 from user unsecured wiretap. I think my landlord is a retired demon.
This one's been eating at me for a while. It sounds ridiculous, I know, but if anyone out there has dealt with something like this, I need to know I'm not losing my mind. So I moved into this weird little apartment above an antique shop in New Jersey. Dirt cheap, no lease, cash only. The guy who owns the place, Mr. Malthus, is probably in his 70s but doesn't look a day over 50. Slicked back white hair, impeccable suits, smells like burnt cinnamon and motor oil. Friendly, but in that used car salesman who's definitely eaten someone kind of way. The weirdness started slow. My rent never went up. He said, "I don't need money anymore, just silence." thought that was just a creepy landlord thing, but okay. Then I started noticing odd stuff in the shop downstairs, like a jar labeled Whispers from 1912, a dusty book that bleeds if you dog-ear the pages, a mirror that reflects your regrets instead of your image. Once I found an old coin with my future death date engraved on it. When I asked him about it, he just smiled and said, "It's flexible." I thought he was just eccentric until one night I heard chanting from his office. Not Latin, not anything human. The walls got warm. I peeked through the crack in the door. He wasn't human, not in that moment. No skin, just this red-black shimmer, covered in ancient scars, glowing with something that looked like rage but felt more like exhaustion. He was slumped in a chair, smoking a cigarette and muttering, "They don't make souls like they used to." When he noticed me, he didn't get angry, just sighed. "I'm retired, you know. Used to trade in temptation, souls for favors. Now it's all influencers selling their dignity for free merch. No challenge, no fun." I laughed nervously. He didn't. Then he said something that still haunts me. "Don't worry, kid. You're safe. I don't deal anymore. But if one of the newer ones ever comes calling, tell them you pay rent to Malthus. They'll leave you alone." Probably. I moved out 2 weeks later. But sometimes when I dream, I see a version of myself shaking his hand. And I wake up richer. Not sure how much longer I can resist.
Story number 10 from User Shadow Committee. Something found me in the deep web. I think it wants my name.
Throwaway for this one. I know how this sounds, but I need to put it out there. I've always been a bit of a morbidly curious person, and a few months ago I started exploring the deep web. Nothing too crazy, mostly just reading articles and poking around some of the more tame, hidden wikis. I know. Not the smartest idea. A few nights ago, I stumbled upon a link in a forum I usually frequent. It was just a string of random characters, no description. Curiosity got the better of me, and I plugged it into Tor. The site that loaded was unsettling. Just a black background with white flickering text. It looked like some kind of old command prompt. There was a single line of text. "Are you curious?" Stupidly, I typed, "Yes." The text changed. "What is your desire?" I hesitated. This felt weird, even for the deep web. But I typed something generic, something like, "to understand the universe." The response was instant. "Such a broad desire. Let us be more specific." Then it started asking me personal questions. Not my name or address, but things like my biggest fears, my deepest regrets, things I hadn't even consciously thought about in years. It was like it was pulling them from my subconscious. I started to get really freaked out. I closed the window immediately, ran a virus scan, the whole 9 yards. Everything came back clean. I tried to find the link again in my history, but it was gone, vanished. I tried to brush it off as some elaborate bot or a really creepy individual, but the feeling of dread lingered. Then last night it happened again. I was just browsing Reddit, nothing unusual, when a private message popped up. The username was just a random string of letters and numbers, similar to the link I'd clicked. The message contained a single line. "We know your desire, my actual first name." My blood ran cold. How did it know my name? I never typed it into that site. My Reddit account is completely separate. There's no way it could have connected the two. I panicked. I blocked the user immediately, changed my Reddit password, unplugged my webcam. I felt like I was being watched. But it didn't end there. This morning, when I turned on my computer, my desktop background had changed. It was just a black screen with that same flickering white text. "We have a question for you. My full name." My full name. How? I immediately disconnected from the internet. I'm writing this on my phone, tethered to a public Wi-Fi. I feel like I've opened a door I can't close. I don't know what this is. A hacker? Some kind of elaborate prank? Or something else? The way it knew things about me. The way it seems to be following me across different platforms. It feels unnatural. Almost predatory. Has anyone ever experienced anything like this online? Something that felt like it was reaching out from the digital darkness and into your real life? I'm terrified. What does it want? Why my name? I'm considering wiping my hard drive and getting a new computer. Maybe even moving. This feels way beyond creepy internet stuff. This feels targeted. TLDR. Clicked a weird link on the deep web. It asked me deeply personal questions. And now something seems to know my real name and is communicating with me through different online platforms. I think something found me, and it feels like it's not human. I need advice. What do I do? Burn my computer? Call someone? I'm genuinely scared.
Story number 11 from user reassigned to Mega. I adopted a cat, but I don't think it's a cat.
Okay, so I've always been more of a dog person, but after my breakup, I figured a cat would be easier. Low maintenance, quiet, good company without the emotional baggage. I should have just bought a houseplant. I got him from this sketchy rescue in the back of a strip mall. No website, no social media, just a handwritten sign that said rehoming creatures in fading red ink. Inside smelled like incense and raw meat. They didn't ask me to fill out any forms, just handed me this carrier and said, "He chose you." I assumed that was just hippie adoption talk. I opened the carrier at home and, well, he's technically a black cat, I guess, but his eyes are a little too human. Not just the shape, the way they judge you. Like he already knows every lie you've ever told and finds you boring. I named him Binks. He didn't like that. Every time I said it, I'd find something broken. First my phone screen, then my bathroom mirror. One night, I woke up to the sound of glass shattering and found the word "no" scratched into my bedroom wall. In cursive. He doesn't eat cat food. Just stares at it like I've offended him. One night, I accidentally cut my finger and he perked up like I rang a dinner bell. Licked the floor, where a drop fell and purred, loud. His purring sounds like a chant. There's a rhythm to it. I recorded it once and ran it through an audio program. The waveform looked like symbols. Sometimes I wake up and he's just staring at the ceiling, tail twitching in a slow countdown. And once, I swear he was whispering in a language I don't know, but somehow understood. Something about openings and skin that remembers. I tried to bring him back to the rescue. The strip mall? Empty lot? Nobody remembers a pet store ever being there. I brought a priest over. Don't ask how I convinced him. And Binks immediately climbed onto his lap and fell asleep. When the priest left, he said, "That's not a demon. That's something older. Good luck." Anyway, last night I found a second shadow following me around my apartment. It's cat-shaped, kind of. But it doesn't match his movements. Sometimes it moves before he does. I haven't slept. He's sitting on my chest right now, purring like a metronome from hell. And in my head, I keep hearing, "You said you wanted company."
Story number 12 from user non-existent badge. Halloween was not fun this year. I think I let something in.
Throwaway, because I don't want this attached to my main account. This just happened a few hours ago, and I'm still shaking so badly I can barely type. Halloween night. I live in a pretty quiet neighborhood, lots of young families, so we get a decent amount of trick-or-treaters. I was enjoying handing out candy, seeing all the cute costumes. Then these kids showed up. There were 3 of them. They were taller than they should have been, maybe 12 or 13, but with this weird, lanky build. Their costumes were off. One was dressed as a clown, but the makeup was smeared and unsettling, the smile too wide, the eyes too dark. Another was wearing a tattered fairy costume, but the wings looked like they were made of something leathery, and her eyes had this strange, golden glint. The third was in a full-body black hooded robe, and I couldn't see their face at all, just blackness under the hood. They didn't say trick or treat. They just stood there, silently, their eyes fixed on me. The air around them felt cold, even though it's a mild night. I offered them candy, holding out the bowl. The clown took a handful, his fingers long and unnaturally thin. The fairy just stared at the candy, her head tilted at an odd angle. The one in the robe didn't move. Then the clown spoke. His voice was raspy, too deep for a kid. "We have come for what was promised." Promised? I hadn't promised anything. I just blinked at them, confused. I don't think I promised you anything, kids. Just take some candy and have a good night." The fairy tilted her head further, and I heard a faint clicking sound, like bones rubbing together. The one in the robe finally moved, its hand reaching out from the sleeve. The hand was wrong. Too many fingers, long and pointed, with nails that looked like black thorns. It pointed at my front door and rasped, in a voice that sounded like dry leaves being crushed. The invitation was given. Invitation? I hadn't invited anyone in. I started to feel a prickle of fear. These weren't normal kids. I took a step back. "I think it's time for you to move along now. Happy Halloween." I tried to sound firm, but my voice was shaking. The clown's smile stretched even wider, if that was possible, and I saw a flash of teeth that were far too sharp. The fairy's golden eyes seemed to glow faintly. The robed figure took another step closer. That's when my dog, Buster, yes, the same Buster from my last post, apparently he has a nose for the unholy, started going absolutely ballistic inside. He was barking and clawing at the door, a deep, guttural growl I'd never heard before. The three figures at my door seemed to flinch. The clown's smile flickered. The fairy's golden eyes dimmed slightly. The robed figure hesitated. Taking advantage of the distraction, I slammed the door shut and locked it. I peered through the peephole. They were still standing there for a long moment, just staring at my house. Then, slowly, silently, they turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. I haven't opened the door since. Buster is still agitated, whining and pacing. The house feels heavy, like something unwelcome has brushed against it. What the hell did I just encounter? Were those kids in incredibly disturbing costumes? Or was there something genuinely wrong about them? The way they moved, the way they spoke, their eyes. It wasn't human. Did I somehow unknowingly invite something? What do they mean by that? I'm turning off all the lights and hiding in my bedroom. I don't think I'll be sleeping tonight. Has anyone else had a truly unsettling experience with trick-or-treaters? Something that went beyond just creepy costumes? I need to know if I'm losing it, or if Halloween just got a whole lot more terrifying. TLDR. 3 unnervingly tall kids in disturbing costumes showed up at my door on Halloween. Didn't say trick or treat, seemed to know things they shouldn't, and my dog freaked out. I think they might have been demons trying to get inside. I'm never celebrating Halloween again.
Story number 13. From user offsite archive box. Pretty sure I just saw a demon at the farmer's market.
Throwaway, because if anyone I know reads this, they'll think I finally cracked. So I went to the local farmer's market this morning. It's usually pretty chill, lots of organic veggies, local honey, the usual wholesome Saturday morning vibes. I was browsing the fruit stand trying to decide between the heirloom tomatoes and some ridiculously overpriced berries, and that's when I saw him. He was standing a little ways off near the guy selling fresh bread. He didn't look like he belonged there. Everyone else was dressed in casual weekend wear, jeans, t-shirts, maybe a cute sundress. This guy was wearing a sharp black suit, like impeccably tailored, the kind you see in movies about powerful CEOs or maybe, well, something else. It wasn't just the suit, though, it was him. He was tall, unnaturally so, maybe close to 7 feet. His face was sharp. Angular features, high cheekbones, a thin, almost cruel smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. And his eyes, they were black. Not just dark brown, but like two pools of absolute void. No whites, no pupils, just black. I tried to tell myself it was just the lighting, or maybe he had some weird contacts, but there was something about his gaze. It felt like it was piercing right through me, even though he wasn't looking directly at me. He was talking to the bread vendor, his voice low and smooth like velvet over gravel. I couldn't make out the words, but there was a cadence to it that made the hairs on my arms stand up. The bread vendor, a usually jovial guy named Dave, looked pale and kept nodding quickly, avoiding eye contact. Then the guy in black turned his head slightly and his gaze flicked over to me. It was only for a second, but it felt like an eternity. That smile widened a fraction, and those black eyes, I swear I saw something flicker in them, something red, just for a split second, like embers glowing in the dark. My stomach dropped. I suddenly felt cold despite the warm morning sun. The air around him seemed to thicken, and that wholesome farmer's market smell was replaced by something else, something faintly sulfurous like burnt matches. I wanted to look away, but I was frozen. It felt like I was caught in his gaze. Then a little kid ran past, bumping into my arm and breaking the connection, and I blinked and the feeling was gone. The air smelled normal again. The guy in the black suit was still there talking to Dave, but his back was to me now. He just looked like a tall guy in a black suit. But I couldn't shake the feeling, the eyes, the smile, the smell. It felt wrong, deeply, fundamentally wrong. I made an excuse to the fruit vendor, paid quickly, and practically ran to my car. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see him following me, and I know how crazy this sounds. It was probably just a weird guy with intense eyes and my imagination running wild, but I can't shake the feeling that I saw something else. Something that shouldn't have been at the local farmer's market buying sourdough. Has anyone ever had an encounter like this? A brief glimpse of something that felt off, otherworldly in a normal public place? Please tell me I'm not the only one who's experienced something like this. I need to know I'm not losing my mind. TLDR. Saw a tall guy in a black suit at the farmer's market with completely black eyes and a creepy smile. The air around him felt wrong, and I swear I saw a flicker of red in his eyes. Pretty sure I just had a close encounter with something demonic. Let
me tell you a story. And that was 13 demonic encounters from people who would probably prefer to have completely boring, uneventful lives instead. Some of these stories could be written off like as sleep paralysis, mental strain, or the brain trying to process fear in the darkest hours of the night. But the details that keep repeating, the mocking laughter, the suffocating pressure, the sense of being watched by something intelligent and cruel, are a little harder to shrug off as coincidence. Maybe these are demons. Maybe they're manifestations of our worst fears. Or maybe there's something we don't have the right word for yet. Whatever you believe, one thing's clear. Not every nightmare ends when you wake up. If you've ever experienced something you'd describe as evil, let me know in the comments. You're not alone in wondering what exactly you let into your life or your house. If you made it this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who insists it's all in your head, but refuses to sleep with their foot hanging off the bed. Thanks for watching. If you hear scratching in the walls tonight, just tell yourself it's the house settling, and hope you're right.